Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mark from the States. How are we doing today? I am doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for coming. I've got an empty fake couch here next to me for all of you to come watch today's video with me, and let's learn something today. This video has come requested. It is by the history guy, and the video title is Without a Trace, HMS Blenheim. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sure I will get some information on the pronunciation in the video, and then maybe after as well if it's correct or not. This Sunday we're going to try to do a live stream. So I will go ahead and schedule that. So anybody who wants to come around and hang out for a little bit, would love to talk to you. I'd love to see you all there. Last night, cool thing, my son, Cooper, was awarded to be a member of the National Honors Society. And so, of course, Mom and I are very, very proud of him. National Honor Society is an award given to recognize students in high school who show excellence in, of course, academics, character, leadership, and something like that, something else, community, something. Yeah, something I would have never have obtained in high school, that's for sure. But yeah, super proud of him. He also got a national letter, which is given to students who had a GPA over 4 straight semesters, a certain GPA and higher over 4 straight semesters. So that was also a wonderful accomplishment. One of the cool things, though, is it's a Catholic high school that he goes to, so it was done inside the chapel, inside the church there, and of course they have some songs they sing before the program started. And the first song they start singing, it was the music to I Vow to Thee, My Country. And I was like, huh? Of course, those weren't the words. It was something else I'd never heard. But it was the whole tune of, so I'm in my head singing I Vow to Thee, My Country, while they're singing something else. I have no idea what it was. Maybe it's a church song. Maybe it's something to do with the National Honors Society. I don't know. So I'm like tapping my wife, Jen, and I'm like, hey, this is actually the I Vow to Thee, My Country. It's a great song. You know, she kind of laughed. Well, then right after that, they sing the national anthem, which, of course, I had to tap her and go, you're not going to believe this. This, too, it was a drinking song that we pretty much stole and made it our national anthem. By then, she was done with me interrupting and wanting to tell her about what I'm learning on our channel. But anywho, thought that was pretty interesting. But it was a wonderful night. So proud of Cooper. Yeah, he's just a good kid. Good kid. Today's video, Without a Trace, HMS Blenheim. Have no idea what this is about. It was recorded. It's the history guy. We have a live stream on Sunday. Let's get into today's video right now.
On January 12, 1807, the third-rate ship-of-the-line HMS Blenheim.
Blenheim. Before we go, I forgot to say, links are in the description below. Just scroll on down. Link to this video if you want to watch it without me, and to his channel. Go over there, History Guy channel. He's blessed blessed us with the permission to learn from his videos. So it's super duper important that you get over there, support his channel. Links below. Just, I've done the work. You just click on it. It takes you right there. As always, if you have one like and one subscribe to give out today, please go do it on the History Guys channel. Thank you.
Accompanied by 2 smaller vessels, left the Indian port of Madras, headed for Cape Town, South Africa. The Blenheim, with a surprising number of men of renown on board, and the frigate HMS Java would never reach their destination, their fate a matter of conjecture. They're just 2 ships of hundreds that were lost during the Age of Sail, and yet the disaster that took them and nearly 900 crew
Yikes.
deserves to be remembered.
So it's a disaster.
Admiral Sir Thomas Trowbridge had, according to the Dictionary of National Biography, enlisted in the Royal Navy at age 15. His first assignment was as a midshipman aboard the frigate HMS Seahorse. In that he was joined at the same time by another young midshipman on his first assignment, Horatio Nelson. He rose steadily and was in hot action frequently in the wars with France. By 1795, he was a captain and commanded the 74-gun HMS Culloden when he led the line in the Battle of Cape St. Vincent on 14 February 1797, when his gallant bearing and determined conduct called forth an expression of warm approval from the Admiral, Sir John Jervis, later made the Earl St. Vincent. The Admiral called Trowbridge the finest officer in the Navy.
Wow.
He then served in the Mediterranean under his old comrade Nelson, and was present at the Battle of the Nile, although HMS Culloden did not actively engage in the battle. In 1801, he joined the Board of Admiralty as First Naval Lord, and was promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral in 1804. But Trowbridge had supported the administration of Prime Minister Henry Addington, and when Addington's government fell and William Pitt was restored as Prime Minister in 1804, Trowbridge expected no hope of an assignment.
I don't know about that. That might have to be for another video. The way he says that the administration fell, I assumed it just voted out of office, maybe, or maybe something more. I don't know. I don't know much about previous prime ministers and administrations and so on and so forth, especially dating back this far. So maybe a little insight there. It's funny how whenever we watch these videos about the Royal Navy back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, there's always this, and it's important because, especially for me, because it gives me some sort of context in a way, that there's always this like 6 degrees to Nelson. Right? You guys know what I'm talking about when I say 6 degrees. There's I don't want to call it a game, but it's always a say, hey, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It was a thing to where you can name anybody, and you have to connect that person somehow back to Kevin Bacon. Yeah, the actor. Wow. Apparently Kevin Bacon, and it's generally another actor. So there's always, Kevin Bacon is known for being in so many movies, I guess, that if you name one actor, you can go, well, this person was in a movie with this person, who was in a movie with this person, who, yada, 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 who was in a movie with Kevin Bacon, kind of a thing that you can leapfrog by that kind of connection. So they called it 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Well, that's what I mean here. It's like there are always, when we do these videos, there's always some link, whether it's major or minor, a link back to Horatio Nelson. Well, for me, that's pretty cool because it gives me some sort of substance, I guess. Like, I don't know Trowbridge. At least I don't think so. I may have heard his name in the past. I don't know. It's pretty unique name. But anyway, the fact that he came up with Nelson, it kind of gives me that sort of okay, is that weird for saying that? I don't know, but that's just, I always find it seems like all the naval videos that we do around this time period always will link somehow to Nelson.
Thus his surprise when Pitt appointed him to the chief command in East
Pitt.
India Seas, to the eastward of Point de Galle. He traveled to the new station on his flagship, HMS Blenheim. But all was not as it seems. When he arrived in Madras, India, the website More Than Nelson explains, Rear Admiral Sir Edward Pellew, who to that date had commanded the whole of the East Indian Station, could not have been more outraged that the incoming Prime Minister, William Pitt, had given Troubridge the more lucrative eastern portion of the newly divided station. In brief, it appears likely that Pitt had deliberately divided the station and sent Troubridge because he disliked both Troubridge and Pellew, and to put them at odds as a political move.
Pellew, I have
That
heard.
idea was reinforced when, after appealing to the Admiralty, Troubridge was reassigned to command the station at Cape Colony, South Africa. He would proceed there, of course, on his flagship, HMS Blenheim, and among those also on board. James Morrison could be said to have had a strange trajectory in the Royal Navy. The native of Stornoway, Scotland, had been in the Royal Navy 5 years, serving on, amongst other ships, the second-rate HMS Blenheim, when he passed his master's gunner's examination in 1783. And yet in 1787 he accepted a position on a vessel at a lower rating, that of a boatswain's mate. It isn't clear why he accepted the position. Perhaps there were no positions available as
Bounty?
a chief gunner, or some speculate he had a desire to sail to the South Seas. Thus, the 27-year-old, described by an officer as a steady, sober, attentive, good man, and by his new captain as 28 years, 5 feet 8 inches high, sallow complexion, long black hair, slender made, left on a scientific botanical mission aboard His Majesty's armed vessel, Bounty. Morrison didn't participate in the mutiny on board HMS Bounty, but he was among the crew that chose to stay aboard the Bounty after the mutiny. He would later argue in his defense that his intent was to stay aboard and attempt to lead a group to retake the vessel, although no such attempt seems to have been made. While it might be generally well known that the Bounty mutineers built a colony on Pitcairn Island, perhaps it's less well known that Fletcher Christian and the mutineers first tried to establish a colony on the South Pacific island of Tubuai. The local population, however, seems to have not taken to these invaders, and after 2 months the colony was abandoned and the mutineers returned to Tahiti. There, Morrison was one of 15 men who chose to stay in Tahiti rather than continue with Christian and the other mutineers. By 1790, Bligh had survived to tell
Could
the
be
tale of
worse
the mutiny,
places.
and the frigate HMS Pandora was sent on a punitive expedition. While Pandora never discovered the remaining 9 mutineers at their new home on Pitcairn, the crew did capture the 14 survivors, who were still on Tahiti. These men, including Morrison, were thrown in the brig, the so-called Pandora's box, to be taken home and tried as mutineers. Pandora then ran aground on the Great Barrier Reef on August 29, 1891. 10 of the mutineers survived the ship's sinking, although 4 drowned as the armorer didn't have time to unshackle them before the ship sank.
Oh,
As
jeez.
harrowing as that was, the survivors were then forced to undergo an open boat journey that, ironically, was nearly identical to that taken by Captain Bligh, to arrive in the same harbor in which Bligh had, Kupang, on the Isle of Timor. They were taken in irons back to Portsmouth, and 6 of those men who had survived the sinking of Pandora were then convicted of mutiny and sentenced to death by hanging. Morrison, however,
Wow. All of that just to end up with the rope.
escaped the hangman's noose, quite possibly because he had had the misfortune of serving under 2 of the worst captains in the Royal Navy, William Bligh and Edward Edwards, captain of the Pandora. Morrison, being a well-spoken man, had written an account of both Bounty and Pandora, which was harshly critical of both Bligh and Edwards, as well as the remaining officers of the Bounty, whom he claimed made no effort to keep the ship from the mutineers. He had given his account to a reverend named Howell, who had apparently circulated some of them amongst the Admiralty. Simply put, the website Pitcairn Island Study Center opines, if Morrison's writings had been published, they would have proved quite embarrassing, and it was not in the national interest to have the extraordinary harshness of some Navy commanders exposed. While his pardon may well have been merely the result of mercy, the Island Study Center writes Morrison's pardon may even have involved an unofficial agreement that he was not to publish his narrative during his lifetime. Although, the website notes, this is pure speculation. Apparently politics had saved the life of James Morrison. Morrison's account of the Bounty, published under the title After the Bounty, a sailor's account of the mutiny and life in the South Seas, is not only one of the most intriguing accounts of the mutiny and the leadership of William Bligh, but also a valuable ethnography of the island of Tahiti. And quite shockingly, James Morrison was again in the Royal Navy, serving first as a gunnery instructor before in 1805, taking a position as the master gunner aboard HMS Blenheim, flagship of Rear Admiral Sir Thomas Trowbridge.
Wow.
Charles Elphinstone was born on the other end of the...
We'll go back. He must really love what he was doing. I mean, I don't know if you can just get out at that time, like say I'm done. But boy, he's got just bad luck. Bad luck.
Thomas Trowbridge. Charles Elphinstone was born on the other end of the social spectrum from James Morrison, being the third son of the Honourable William Fullerton Elphinstone, the chairman of the British East India Company. He was a grandson of Lord Elphinstone, the Lord High Treasurer of Scotland. His uncle was George Elphinstone, the Baron and eventually Viscount Keith, a naval hero who was, in 1807, Commander-in-Chief of the North Sea. His older brother George was in the army, would eventually reach the rank of Major General, although an unlucky one in the end. Charles himself had taken after his famous uncle in the Royal Navy, where his rise had been, it is fair to describe it, meteoric. The Elphinstone family book writes of him, like his distinguished uncle, Lord Keith, he entered with all his energy into the work and adventure of a life at sea, and soon became both interested and experienced in no small degree in naval affairs. Animated both by enthusiasm and example, he lost no opportunity of distinguishing himself in the service of his country and embraced the facilities at a time offered to naval officers by the disturbed condition on the European continent. A letter to his father from his commander wrote of a singular accomplishment in India. The naval career of Captain Charles Elphinstone was attended with marked success, especially in his operations against the Dutch. The war with Holland at that time gave ample opportunity for the display of naval prowess, and also held out the inducement of abundant reward by prize money. In both these respects, Charles Elphinstone distinguished himself to a remarkable degree. His greatest triumph, and one which gained him warm approval of the Admiralty and the nation, was the capture of 3 Dutch vessels, the Pallas, Victoria, and Batavia, in one day, on the 26th of July, 1806. Elphinstone had been in command of HMS Greyhound, a 32-gun fifth-rate ship. He had been assisted in the action by the sloop HMS Harrier, then under the command of William Trowbridge, son of Admiral Sir Thomas Trowbridge, the officer who had written a letter of praise to Elphinstone's father. In recognition of his success, at just 23 years of age, Charles Elphinstone had achieved the rank of post-captain. He was ordered back to England for new assignment, and for the first leg, he would accompany the Admiral to South Africa on HMS Blenheim. The younger Trowbridge was given command of the Greyhound. And these were just a few of the nearly 900 men aboard HMS Blenheim and the accompanying frigate HMS Java, but they were not the only notable people for sure. A midshipman, 16-year-old George Lord Rosehill, was the eldest son and heir of Rear Admiral William Carnagle, the Earl of Norfolk. Also aboard was an officer named William Henry Courtney, an illegitimate son of Admiral William, Duke of Clarence, who was the third son of King George III and himself the future King William IV. The problem, though, was HMS Blenheim. Blenheim was at the time 53 years old. Launched in 1761, she had been built as a second-rate ship of the line, rated at 90 guns. She had participated in the 30 Years' War, the French Revolutionary Wars.
Before we continue, he just mentioned 30 Years' War. I had read the first couple comments, and the top one was by the history guy, and he points out that other people had pointed out that he meant to say the 7 Years' War, not 30 Years' War. Just wanted to point that out on the correction there. It does seem when we watch a lot of these videos, there's so much web of who's who people, their connections back to royalty or back to admiralty, and it's just like, a spider web of, connecting dots. It's incredible.
She had been in the line with Trowbridge and HMS Culloden at the Battle of Cape St. Vincent.
Hard to keep track,
but the aging
too.
ship had become hogged, sag in its keel. To keep her seaworthy, in 1801 she had been raised, meaning that she had been cut down, having her third deck removed, taking her to 74 guns and making her a third-rate ship. Third-raters were commonly used as flagships in distant posts, and 74 guns was respectable. But Blenheim was not in good shape. In fact, the ship had also been damaged after having grounded, an issue that alarmed her captain, Austin Bissell, who, like Morrison, had already survived the sinking of a vessel. More Than Nelson writes that with the Blenheim having in the meantime been damaged by grounding in the Straits of Malacca, Captain Bissell advised Troubridge during a refit at Madras that she was not fit to undergo a voyage to the Cape. Nevertheless, the impulsive Rear Admiral insisted upon sailing, being eager to get away from Pellew before their differences developed into an outright feud. Bissell reported the condition of the ship, as quoted in the Naval and Military Record in 1895 as utterly unseaworthy and required constant pumping even when in harbor. Her back was broken, her frame shaken to pieces, and she was hogged excessively. In fact, her head and stern fell so much that she rose like a hill amidship, to the point that a person who stood at the door of the poop cabin could not see the sentry at the forecastle below his waist. In his 1997 book, Shipwrecks of the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Eras, Terence Grocott explains that even Admiral Pellew entreated Rear Admiral Troubridge to select any other ship at the station, but Sir Thomas refused. The Naval and Military Record explains that when Bissell told him of the ship's condition, the Rear Admiral told him that if he was afraid, that he might go ashore, a taunt that compelled the unfortunate officer to sacrifice himself with his ship's company.
Oh, boy.
More Than Nelson explains that his powers of persuasion were so characteristically effective that a number of passengers decided to undertake the voyage with him. Bissell was shamed, but he knew his ship. The Naval and Military Record notes the captain had written a last farewell to his wife from his conviction that the Blenheim might founder. Blenheim was accompanied by HMS Java, a 36-gun frigate under the command of Captain George Pigott. Grocott notes that the Java was, like HMS Blenheim, in bad shape, a vessel that had been captured from the Dutch, and described as an old vessel that was alarmingly crank, meaning unstable and quite unfit for a 5,000-mile voyage.
Damn.
And the sloop HMS Harrier, the younger Troubridge's former command, which was now under the command of Captain William Wilbrahim. The three ships left for Cape Town on January 12th. The logbook from HMS Harrier on February 1st reads, 1 February 1807, 0200, course southwest, wind northeast. Morning, threatening weather. In third reef of fore topsail, heavy rain and wind increasing. By 4 a.m., the log reported strong gales with heavy squalls and rain. The bad weather continued, but at noon, Harrier reported that the three ships were still together. At 2 o'clock, the logbook noted that Blenheim signaled Java, and the ship is overpressed with sail and cannot keep her station on that account. At 5 p.m., the logbook notes, signal number 80 sent by Blenheim to General, steer southwest by south. Blenheim made another signal which could not make out. This was the last signal made by Blenheim. The main topsail yard carried away in the slings, owing to the lift and brace giving way, endeavored to furl the sail from the yard. By 5:20, Harrier, in danger herself and shipping a great volume of water, lost sight of Blenheim and Java.
Wow.
That is the last confirmed sighting of HMS Blenheim and HMS Java. Years later, a French frigate reported having seen the two vessels flying flags of distress, and another report suggested that the ships fitting their description had arrived and made repairs at an island north of Madagascar and then sailed away. But the 1895 report writes, no other news of the Blenheim ever reached England. No clue was ever found to point to the spot or fix the date where and when the Blenheim foundered. An extensive search was conducted by Admiral Troubridge's son aboard HMS Greyhound that included the cooperation of the French, but no piece of wreckage that could ever be tied to either vessel was ever found. The admiral, who had once been described as the finest officer in the Royal Navy, the captain who had already written his final goodbye, the sons of the chairman of the East India Company, of the admiral of the North Sea, and of the future King of England, as well as the lowly sailor that had survived the mutiny on the Bounty, the sinking of the Pandora, and a death sentence, all lost, along with nearly 900 other men.
That's insane.
Without a trace. As a final irony, HMS Harrier, which was the only one of the three vessels to survive the storm and the last vessel to have seen Blenheim and Java, itself went missing without a trace. Just 2 years later.
Wow.
I hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
Oh, my God. I'm sure, back in that time, I'm sure a lot of ships went missing, maybe, I guess, without a trace, if you will. But just the fact that the connection of the people, having the story of Morrison on board with his connection to the Bounty and Pandora, that I find probably the most interesting out of this whole tale. You can see ships the story of ships going missing per se. I'm sure it's, back then it was just part of the, the dangers, the perils of shipping back in those days. I'm guessing. Of course, I'm going to look forward to the emails and comments because that's where I do the bulk of my learning, of course. But just an interesting tale all the way around. Thank you so much for the request. There are some names in there, Pelu and of course Nelson and I want to say I've heard the name True Bridge before, but I don't know. And of course Bounty and Pandora, and just insane how they all have the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's incredible. What a great video. Thank you for coming to hang out with me today. Hopefully you learned something today. I know I did. Hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. Please go support History Guy. Links, of course, just scroll down right there. Takes you right to his channel. Go support him. We did a video yesterday. Some people mentioned that they went and subscribed after watching the video and became some new subscribers of that. That is the best news. That is the best form of payment that I could possibly get. I love it. I love hearing that you go and you find a channel that you enjoy, and it's these are good, entertaining. Take care, everyone. And I believe tomorrow we're going to get to the March Past. So I think I'm able to salvage some of that video. And we'll show that. And have a great rest of your day and evening. Take care. Bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark